And particularly the new education policy, yes, there has been some important, proposals here, setting up of new KVs and other institutions. And so, moreover, madam, you have put in a very lucid picture about the budget. And yes, there are certain areas which have been left, which you felt that it was to be given a little bit more priority, like MSME sector, which contributes a lot to the economy for export and also particularly for the generation of employment. Thank you, ma'am, for so lucidly you are putting your thoughts here. Now I request Professor Dr. Rajkishore Panda, sir, to share his thoughts on his proposed changes and the thrust areas of the new budget, Union Budget 2021. Professor Dr. Rajkishore Panda, sir, please.
Good afternoon, friends. And I thank profusely my friend Professor Kalyan Shankar Rai for inviting me, and also thank very much to Professor Mohanty and Professor Mahapatra for their cooperation and calling me frequently for this webinar. Interestingly, my panelist Professor Misra and Mr. Sahu, they are quite good enough, and they are very, very scholarly people with a very thought-provoking mind, and they spoke, and Professor Misra spoke many things on this aspect. But I will confine to 2 to 3 things of the budget, because I will not give the figures because it may be a little bit boring for all of us to listen to us. But to start with, I am to say that, as Professor Misra has already pointed out, this year's annual budget is an annual regular exercise by the government. And the government has laid the budget before the parliament. And always what we see that in a democratic country, the government, the executive, has to lay the budget in the parliament, in the legislature, to get approval. Unless that is approved, then the government's work will not be there. Government cannot function. So therefore, prior approval, budget approval of this parliament is necessary, that government should function and move ahead. With this idea, with this system that we see, finance minister has laid the budget, and in the budget, as we know, 2 things are very much imagined by the government. One, with regard to the budget, is an annual income expenditure statement of the government. So how much, what are the sources from which government will get income and how it will spend it. But besides, what is more important is that it is a policy aspect, because budget is an instrument of policy, and government takes care nowadays. Governments also takes care of the policy aspect of the budget. And in the present situation, with the pandemic behind, we are to think a lot about this policy aspect. And the policy aspect before government is 2 in nature. One, immediate policy. Second is long-term policy. Immediate policy implies how to revive the economy and bring to the pre-COVID period. So what was the situation in the pre-COVID period in terms of employment, output, demand, and growth? The economy must come immediately. The second aspect of this policy was long-term policy, because government and the Prime Minister has already spoken about that India to achieve 5 trillion economy by 2024. So therefore, with this idea in mind, the budget, I think it has been prepared so that the economy can go to this 5 trillion mark by 2024. This is the first one. The second one, I want to tell you that, as already pointed out by Professor Misra, it is a growth-oriented budget. That means the government has given prime importance to growth. Why prime importance to growth? Because growth will lead to a rise in employment, output, and also expenditure. So therefore, growth is given priority in this context. And in that context, I have to tell you that why we are talking of the growth, what is important? Because growth will lead to the economy to revive, to get higher employment, higher output, and all these things. And the demand particularly, which has been fallen during this COVID period or this pandemic period. But what I want to tell you is that in that context is that that we are talking of the pandemic. But my impression is that it is not the pandemic. Over the last few years, the Indian economy is underperforming. If you see the records of growth over the period from 2016-17 to 2019-20, there has been a consistent fall in GDP growth rate from 8.2% to 4.2% in 2020. And there we saw the pandemic occurred. And the pandemic again brought the economy to further down. And we saw that in the first quarter of the 2020, we saw the growth rate has fallen by 23%. And now it has revived to some extent. And it is in the second quarter, it has come down to 11%, though it is minus. But it is continuing, and there is now expectation that in this current year, 2020-21, the growth rate will be minus, and it will be minus 7.7%, as has been calculated, evaluated by so many institutions. So that's like this. So therefore, but they forecast that in 2020-22, the growth rate will be up by 11%. Though we don't know what will happen in that context. But in that context, with this, that the Indian economy is in a very precarious situation, and over the years, the growth rate is not due to pandemic, but before that also, growth rate was declining. In that context, the budget preparation by the Honorable Finance Minister is a very tricky one. And she has taken a lot of troubles of doing and making a budget more successful in the context. And I am to say that there has been a significant departure of the present budget from the earlier ones. And a significant departure in the sense, I will point out two important things, how it is significant departure. One first point I want to tell you that all along we were talking of FRBM, fiscal policy, FRBM, fiscal responsibility and budget management. And under this context, always the governments were asked to keep their fiscal deficit within 3%. So therefore, but what we see that there has been a lot of discussion on this fiscal deficits, and people are now telling that it is because of this fiscal deficit that the government GDP in Indian context has been kept low. So the low rate of GDP growth in the Indian context is one of the factors is fiscal deficit being kept at 3%, below 3% level. And in this first case, the Honorable Finance Minister has gone out of this fear. And she has taken that fiscal deficit, as already pointed out, at 9.5% around. And she is of the opinion that fiscal deficit, if there is a good quality of fiscal deficit, it will end up in lowering debt GDP ratio, and it will revive the economy. It will have more of output, employment, and demand will be revived. So therefore, the very purpose of the fiscal deficit she directs is that the growth will be revived. So growth will be revived, and for that purpose, they have left this rule, and now the deficit has come, though it was earlier was within 3.5%, now it has come to 9.5%. So therefore, they have been little bit liberal. That deficit financing, as we discussed about those days of New Deal policy of Franklin D. Roosevelt, when they were doing this, the government was spending higher amount. So that is the reason why, in that context, in the present context of the slowing down of the economy over the years, and also because of the pandemic, because of a lot of devastation, both in life and livelihood had taken place in Indian context. So therefore, they have taken the challenge and made that fiscal deficit should not be confined to 3%. It should be little more, so that economy can be revived. The second aspect for which there is a departure, that I will say that that they have thought of raising foreign direct investment. And as we know, in case of insurance companies, life insurance corporation, the limit has been extended to 74%, from 49 to 74%. Foreign direct investment has increased. So also, they have taken 1.75 crores towards this investment. And in that context, we see that why they are taking like this? Why? What is the problem? So therefore, they have taken this is perhaps of the opinion that the economy has not sufficient amount of savings for which investment from the domestic area can come up, so that the economy can have a good growth. So therefore, the finance minister has taken a lot of pain in thinking of having more of foreign investment, including also this investment. So that is also a skeptic solution that I want to tell you. And why I'm telling this is because of the fact that over the years, I will speak about three limitations of the Indian economy, for which we can say that budget will have a mixed impact after 1 year. What is this? Because so far what we see, the India lacks in export competitiveness, and all along economists are telling that if you are not export competitive, then economy cannot progress much. So therefore, and I give you one example. Interestingly, export competitiveness, if we say India's export is stuck at 0.9% of the GDP, less than 1%, that you can say, which is while that of Bangladesh export has grown up by 8.5%. So you imagine that our export competitiveness in the present context is at a very weak level, and we have to be export competitive so that in the international market we can come up and our product can be sold. We can't only simply rely on domestic market. So therefore, if we want higher growth, we must have to open the economy and make our product competitive. So that is how I am skeptic that in spite of our interest that we have to invite more of foreign investment, we have to make our product competitive. Then only the foreigners will come and invest here, and which may have some fruitful results. This is the first I want to tell you. The second point I want to tell you that the economic survey, if you see, speaks about administrative over-regulation. What is the meaning of this administrative over-regulation? That means our system, what is the system followed in India, that we have practiced in India, is there is over-regulation is there. I give you an example. In case of Singapore, if an industry wants to close it, it takes only 128 days to close it. Whereas in case of India, if an industrialist wants to close his industry, it takes 1600 days to close it. So that gives you an example that is too much of administrative regulations, in spite of the fact that license Raj and other things have been done away with. But in spite of all this, we have more of administrative control and more of procedure and delay, which leads to that the foreigners or the private entrepreneurs may not be interested to invest in India. This is the second reason why, and it has been categorically pointed out by the economic survey about the administrative regulation, that we have to take, because we have to think of transforming the administration. Administrative structural transformation in the administrative setup must be there, so that it will be easier on the part of the industrialists from outside to come and invest in India. This is the second point. I am skeptic about whatever the things they have thought of in the budget by inviting foreign investors. It will be a problem for them. The third thing which I have already pointed out, and I want to repeat again and tell you that what is the major problem in India is, over the years, our investment is declining. And why investment declining is because our saving is also falling. The gross saving rate in India is falling from 36% of the GDP in 2007-8 to 34% in 2012 and further to 30% in 2019. So please remember that in the savings sector, household plays a very key role. And particularly because 60% for the investment from household sector, because that and the private corporate sector, they are saving. So out of the three components, 60% of the saving comes from the household sector. But what we see that this household sector also has fallen from 23% in 2012 to 18% in 1920. So there has been a significant fall in the savings, gross savings rate, as well as household savings rate, which is an important component of the gross saving rate of the Indian economy. Why this happens? Because over the years, we may ask that what is the reason for which savings are falling? If you read the different reports, we find that most of the in all these cases over the years, recent years, what we see, borrowing has increased because of the facilities available in different banks and other institutions. People's borrowing has increased. Everybody is interested in borrowing to do something. I mean, purchasing a house or a vehicle or something like this, not out of their saving, it is out of borrowing. And therefore, because of the increase in borrowing, the savings, they are not interested in saving. And particularly during the pandemic period, what we see, people have cut savings to save their livelihood. So therefore, my impression is that these three important factors, that is one, export uncompetitiveness and administrative overregulation and declining saving over the period, trend in saving rate, has these three have created problems, and they may inhibit any rise in investment in India. So therefore, the finance ministers wish that because of the paying money to the hands of the people through infrastructure development, through health sector, because it will straight go to the people's hand, money will go to their purchasing power will increase. By this way, they can also attract foreign people to come, because once the infrastructure is set up, foreign people will come and invest in India. So in that context, this idea, this notion of the finance minister to create the infrastructure, to create a health sector, develop a health sector, improve health sector, that's why to attract foreign investment may not be fruitful because of these problems that I have already directed. So with this idea, I think that, but in spite of all this, I should congratulate the finance minister, because he has taken a bold step of having a budget certainly different, significant departure from the earlier ones, and she has taken a great risk of paying money to the hands of the people. It is spending money the spending, though it is, as already pointed out by Professor Misra, that private sector given importance, it is a fact. But the very fact that the government wants to spend in the social sector, like infrastructure, economic sector, like infrastructure and social sector, like health sector, it will increase purchasing power, it will raise consumption demand, it will raise, it will create base for infrastructure and attract investment, and that's why the economy can revive. With these words, I thank you profusely for giving me some patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Raj Kishore Panda, sir. You have touched so many areas, particularly, you have pointed out two important departures from the previous budgets that were presented in India that I would like to highlight here. The fiscal deficit, which was kept around 3.4%, and you feel that this finance minister who is bold enough, to go for a higher fiscal deficit, and with the noble objective of pushing the economy up. And the second point you have raised is the FDI. Yes, FDI is very important, but then the limit has been raised, and disinvestments have to done in a proper way so that adequate funds will come to the state exchequer, which will in turn be invested, and that will help in reviving the economy quicker and faster. And also you have talked about the short-term policy and long-term policy goals, which are quite important. Yes, after the post-COVID scenario, the government had to go in for setting right certain things as priority basis, but in the long term, the intention of reaching that $5 trillion economy, it has to be there, and somehow you have to strategize and take steps accordingly to move towards that, and we have to be more competitive in everything we do.
Hello. Now I request Chartered Accountant Rajiv Shekhar Sahu.
Particularly how he assesses and expects the budget to impact the economy, whether the economy will grow in V shape or K shape, now it has been discussed and debated at different forums. I expect Professor Sri Rajiv Shekhar Sahu to please throw light on these, and particularly how the economy he sees is going to grow in future.
Good afternoon, everybody. Professor Misra, Professor Panda, Dr. Mohanty, Dr. Mahapatra, and all the students and the faculty of SPM. The task is easier because the two eminent speakers, both the professors have highlighted the budget highlights and also given a lucid analysis of the budget. And largely, the thought process of the other two panelists and myself go together. And that has made my task easy. First of all, let me tell all of you that we have come out of one of the worst pandemic in the last 100 years. Probably we have not imagined that a pandemic, the virus can destabilize the economy to this extent and paralyze the livelihood in a large way. And so much so that the first quarter with a negative growth of 23.9%, followed by 7.5% is unthinkable. We always think of 0.2%, 0.3%, 0.5%. Here it came down to, it's like India being bowled out for 36. As bad as that, the first quarter. But the strength of the Indian economy, the enthusiasm, the resilience, and the process in which the COVID-19 was handled, and slowly and steadily the unlock process which started, led us to a new hope, new thinking that we might end up with a real growth of 11.5%. That is the positive side of the post-pandemic. Now, there has been both criticism and appreciation of the finance minister's challenge being taken. What is the challenge? FRBM has specifically laid down that you should be around 3% of your GDP as far as the fiscal deficit is concerned. Now, the question is why the FRBM was necessary. The FRBM was necessary because everybody was trying to develop at the cost of borrowing, and the economy cannot sustain the large borrowing. And the large borrowing only indicates that you might get into a debt trap. And for unlike the company where debt service coverage ratio is the guideline for borrowing, here it is the debt to GDP ratio. If the debt is very high compared to the GDP, then you are in for trouble, as many countries have suffered in the past. Now, what happened? Against a target of 3.5, the economy has ended or estimated to end up with 9.5. Now, this is something which I think no economist can appreciate, with the exception of facing a pandemic. And we have no other choice, because a large amount of money has to be spent in health. A lot of package has to be given to the people at different stages and to different sections of the society. I'm not going into those details. I'm only saying that what was the choice? Those who criticize the finance minister, as I have seen in one of the article in the interview of the former finance minister, P. Chidambaram, he said this is going to lead to a chaotic situation. My question to all is, did she have any choice in having an alternate to it? And what is that alternate possible? Is you tax more on the rich, you increase the tax in general, and then mobilize more resources, contain the fiscal deficit, and you may be much closer to the FRBM norms than where you are today. 9.5 in 2021, estimated to be 6.8. And 6.8 is what is projected. If 3.5 gets into 9.5%, now you are estimating 6.8. Obviously, you can't find a ratio in that. You have to reduce the gap between your estimation and the outcome. Now, what are the constraints in this budget? To me, definitely 6.8 might lead to a higher inflation. And we have already seen what higher inflation has led to. In the regime of around 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, there was a high inflation of around 10%, and that 10% was definitely looking very ugly, because with that inflation, the CRR had to be increased, the Reserve Bank has to shock out the money from the market, the rate of interest would have gone up, the economy would have slowed down to ensure less money goes into the market. Quite contradictory to the prescribed method of what the Honorable Finance Minister has adopted, is let more money go to the market. Sorry? More money should go to the market, more money should go to the people. There should be generation of demand, there should be creation of demand, and based on the creation of demand, there should be more supply leading to a bigger economy, leading to higher GST collection, leading to more manufacturing activity, leading to higher income tax also. So that is the route that Honorable Finance Minister has adopted, rather than taxing more and more on the rich, as the Oxfam report indicated. And I am a person, I am totally not in favor of what Oxfam has given. I have shared it in some of the channels. that data may be correct, but you can't keep on imposing penalty on the performers. Those who perform, they should be rewarded. They should be encouraged to invest. There should be capital formation rather than taxing on them and sucking money out of them for public consumption. So in that, she has rightly, in my opinion, rightly taken the challenge, accepted the challenge, given more money to the public. She has increased the size of the budget and gone up to about 35 lakhs crore, and maybe it may end up a little more, all subject to how the economy is going to behave in the next 2 quarters, 3 quarters. And in this, the second challenge that I can see is disinvestment target of 1.75 is not an easy target. And as Professor Mishra has rightly said, I totally agree with the view that against 2 lakh crore, you could achieve barely maybe 15-20%. And when we talk of 1.75 or 2 lakhs, not only that we have never achieved, we have never been close to the target also. And there are political constraints, there are economic constraints, there are market constraints, and here that we are bullish about BPCL, Air India, Concur, maybe LIC. But all this, if it happens, we all will appreciate, we all will applaud. But I have a doubt on achieving this particular budget, this disinvestment target. So in this situation, one has to keep in mind the job creation, and job creation can only happen. One is the policy, one is more investment to come. Tax collection, while it has been up, but the tax rate has been slashed down quite substantially in order to keep the commitment and also to encourage more of economic activity in the system. More money should come into productive areas. Some of the steps that have been taken by the Honorable Finance Minister is to tell all the PSUs who are sitting with large funds, please invest more. They have told Coal India, they have told NALCO, they have told all the public sector, petroleum sector PSUs, the power sector PSUs, that please invest. Only thing is, it is not easy to invest in this country unless it is a brown field, because green field, you know, each time a new project comes, everybody gets a lot because they find a new opportunity coming for them to take advantage of it. And as you know, starting an industry in India, or for that matter, Odisha, is not an easy task. What takes in China 3 years or 3.5 years takes 7 years or 8 years in India. And therefore, not only the logistic cost, the capital cost goes up so much that what Professor Panda was telling, that competitiveness of Indian industry gets diluted. And therefore, it is not only the finance minister's figures, policy, direction, it is the political intent which is very important for achieving a faster and higher growth. While I say so, I must hope that the challenge taken by Honorable Finance Minister and a pro-business model will be successful. Market has already given thumbs up to what has been formulated in the budget. Market has reached 50,000 as the BSE has reached, which is itself though an encouraging figure, but also to me a bit of surprise, because sustainability of market is equally important. Coming back in short, I'll tell the taxation, most of the income tax provision has remained where it is, and that must be appreciated, that a stability in a tax regime is quite important. They have tinkered some of the provisions, they have tinkered some of the provisions in the other tax provisions, which we will only test when the situation comes. We only hope the buoyancy, the growth in the market, the GST collection has reached its peak of 1,20,000 crore. We hope by the time the year ends, it will be around 1,50,000 crore if we are able to achieve the kind of potential that we have. If we are able to collect more, and if we are able to direct such investment in the right direction to achieve 11.5% growth over the previous year on real growth is achievable in my opinion. I once again thank the ASBM University for regularly organizing such nice programs, and I have attended many of them. Thanks to Professor Mahapatra, thanks to Professor Mohanty, thanks to the great Biswajit Patnaik, Professor Biswajit Patnaik, for leading such a nice university, and my thanks to all the listeners for a patient hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Rajiv Sekhar Sahu, sir. You have so nicely put so many things together. Now, we all join you in expecting the economy to do better. Yes, the last quarter we had a negative growth rate, but as you expect and as you feel that 11% growth is achievable, provided the following conditions that you had said are fulfilled. Okay, this investment is something we have not been able to achieve so far, which you have highlighted rightfully, and the job creation, that is the most important now post-COVID time, and also the GST collection, which is going to give the adequate revenue for the government, and it will have more freedom to utilize it for the betterment and creation of social assets. And the economy was handled so beautifully during pandemic. That's what Professor Mr. Sekhar Sahu, Rajiv Sekhar Sahu has highlighted, and the finance minister really had no choice, which rightfully he has pointed out, to go for this huge unprecedented borrowings and fiscal deficit of 9.5%, but he had really no choice. That's what Sri Rajiv Sekhar Sahu feels, and we all agree with you, sir. Thank you for your so nice deliberations, Sri Sahu and all the panelists. Now I request Professor Padmanabh Mahapatra, head of the School of Accountancy, to take up the question answer session and also offer a formal vote of thanks at the end. Professor Padmanabh Mahapatra, please, now it's your turn.
Thank you, sir, very much. Now we will have our question answer session. Till now, we have not received any questions from the participants. So participants are requested to send their questions through the chat box only, not by words of mouth. Otherwise, we will face difficulties in organizing the session. Interested participants may send their questions through the chat box.
Now, in the meantime, I will be tempted to put a question to the panelists, any one of you who can answer this. Not very tough one. What I feel, and I carry the sentiment of the large section of the people when I am putting this question. Some income tax relief was expected and was being talked about in different media and different forums, because considering the long spell of joblessness which people have gone through the entire 2020, particularly in the informal sector. Now, this has not happened. Of course, the tax has not been raised. Government had its own limitations. But what are your views on this? Do you feel that the middle class and the lower income groups people have been, left aside in some way? Professor Misra can take it. Yeah, ma'am, please.
Sir Mahapatra is asking that some income tax relief was expected. Yes, as I said, every year we expect that there will be some change in the income tax structure. There will be some relief, so some section of people will be happy. So of course, it was expected by many that there will be some relief and there will be more money at the hand of at least lower middle class section, particularly those who have been hit hard due to job loss, income loss. But Prime Minister has herself answered this actually in one of her interviews. She said that if I had more resources, I couldn't have given that. So that explains everything actually. So there is so much of a resource crunch. That's why this huge deficit. So resource generation was the biggest challenge before the finance minister, particularly for this budget. So the finance minister perhaps didn't intend to tinker with income tax structure. She also talked about stability, as I mentioned in my previous slot. So income tax relief, that was not possible. That is what she says. And because revenue, the shortfall of revenue is already a matter of concern. Yeah, in other words, what she actually does is that there will be income generation, as just now Rajiv Saudi said. There will be income generation, there will be more money at the hands of the people because of employment, income, infrastructure building, and lots of economic activities, which will put money into the hands of the people. Then people, that will be more sustainable, I think. Giving some kind of relief or some kind of dole, some kind of direct benefit transfer, which was already happening during the pandemic times. Okay, there are a lot of benefit transfer, a lot of concessions given during the last year, during the pandemic, when we were deep into the pandemic. The government and food subsidy, that was also there. So a lot of money has been spent on that as well. So for this budget, I think it was not possible, as he says, and we also feel so. So that's why this is the outcome. This much I can
Yeah.
say.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. That's right. Any questions, Professor Padmanabh Mahapatra sir, has come from any of the participants?
No, sir. Till now, there is no questions have received. We
My
shall go for.
students, I would request you, any one of you, to please unmute yourself and you can ask the question directly if you have not put it down in black and white.
If I can be, the previous question about the income tax, I can add Professor Misra's statement.
Please, sir, go.
I can add to Professor Misra's statement about this income tax, what you asked her.
Please
Is
go
that,
ahead. Please go ahead.
that
Please go ahead.
in case of income tax,
Yeah.
as you know, less than 1% are income tax pay in India. Less than 1% people pay income tax, and out of which also what we expect that they are more or less salaried people. So that's the reason why perhaps the government thought that it will have no use if we tinker it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Even if there is no tax bill, at least the tax has not gone up in that. To that extent,
That is more important. That is more important because they want that more money will be in the hands of the people. Instead of imposing taxes, that is they want.
That could be the one of the reason why they have not done it.
That could.
And,
okay.
Since no more questions have come, I just am tempted to put one more question if you panelists would allow me. This is a question from my side only. See, that they talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat initiatives that the government has taken, and this is also a part of this budget discussion. And not only budget, it was also being discussed earlier by none other than our PM. Now, in this continuation, there is a provision in this present budget that to tax or rather puts 2.5% this customs duty on importing these cellular phones or mobile phones, spare parts and other things, and also the automobile spare parts. Now, this has been done with the intention of creating this import substitution and some way support this Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. But do you feel, I am asking panelists, whether it is feasible in the short run when almost 27% of our imports in terms of auto components comes from China particularly, and also a major part of this pharmaceutical ingredients, that too also we import from China and other countries. So is it how practical it is, particularly considering in the short run? Okay, long run we should all be Atmanirbhar, we should not depend on outsiders. But is it feasible right now? What is your honest view?
Can I answer this?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes. So regarding Atmanirbhar Bharat, I don't think that the budget has done much towards that. Prime Minister claims that, we all have heard that, but the import substitution and export promotion measures are not at all sufficient to build up an Atmanirbhar Bharat. More or less, more so, the education sector, as I have already said, that the national education policy talks about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay, but in the budget, there is not much provision on that line. Vocationalization, skilling, and all that, that has been given some amount of attention, but that's absolutely not enough, not sufficient to build Atmanirbhar Bharat. But the budget gives a direction at least. The Prime Minister expresses that that's the direction the budget is leading to. The Finance Minister also talked about that, but there has not been sufficient provision. I don't think in the short run there will be anything called Atmanirbhar Bharat that will be possible with the measures that have been provided in the budget. So we have to add on to that year after
Right.
year, and there has to be more thrust on that.
Right. Professor Padmanabh Mahapatra, sir, any further question has come in the meantime? Or would you like any question from your side?
No, sir. Let's say we will wind up the session now because we are in the short of time.
Okay. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Okay, we shall go for the vote of thanks. Madam Dr. Padmaja Misra, former Vice Chancellor of RD Women's University, have very rightly decoded and discussed in a lucid manner the union budget. For the common man, students and researchers. At the beginning, she praised the union budget. She explained the budget as a growth-oriented budget. The union budget emphasizes on capital budgeting and investment. She explained definitely there will be development of income, market, employment and asset creation. Budget focuses to MSME sector. No change in the taxation and stability is maintained. This budget have given importance to the education sector, no doubt, but allocation to the education sector is reduced in comparison to the last year. He disappointed with this point. So, Madam joined with us and share her valuable thoughts on Union Budget 21. We are very much thankful to her, and our participants will get immense value addition from her talk. Professor Dr. R.K. Ponda, former Director, Navakrishna Chaudhary Center for Developmental Studies, has discussed that this union budget has given importance to growth. According to him, growth rate is fallen continuously in the few previous years and due to COVID again fallen drastically. Sir is hopeful that this budget will help in increasing growth rate. A number of tricks and efforts have been taken for this purpose. Sir explained competitive product and reducing degree of administrative control will attract the foreign investors. I hope this will provide immense thoughts for our participants and the researchers. Sir joined with us and share his opinions on Union Budget 21. We are very much thankful to him. Chartered Accountant Rajiv Shekhar Sahu from SRB and Associates have discussed the economy cannot sustain with heavy amount of debt. Many countries have fallen due to this. Again, high inflation will disturb the economy. Both Prime Minister and Finance Minister have given importance to more production and more market. It will help the situation. So Senior Chartered Accountant Sahu joined with us and shared his opinions and thoughts on Union Budget 21. We are very much thankful to him also. Again, on behalf of our SBM University, we offer our deepest gratitude to all our three panel speakers. We are thankful to our President, Professor Dr. Biswajit Patnaik, for his constant support and inspiration for this purpose. Because of him, we are at the end of 22nd webinar on different varied group of topics. We are thankful to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Kalyan Shankar Ray, and Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Phalguni Ranjana, for their continuous guidance for the organization and successful performance of the webinars. We are thankful to all our participants for their support for this. We are thankful to our registrar, controller, dean, associate dean, webinar team, systems team, and others who have added their substantial value at the respective ends for the smooth functioning of this webinar. Once again, I thanks to all. With this, we are winding up the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.